He woke up in a hospital bed, with no memory of the woman who used to sleep beside him. They told him she was nobody, a stranger who worked for him. They erased her photos, her name, even their marriage certificate. But 2 years later, at a charity gala filled with flashing lights and lies, he saw her, the woman in the silver gown, the artist who painted the sea, the same one from their honeymoon. And in that moment, his heart remembered everything his mind had forgotten, because love doesn't die with memory. It waits until you find it again. Rain poured over the city that night, not the soft kind that kissed the ground, but the kind that seemed to weep for someone. Inside a dim hospital room, Ava Cole sat by the bed of a man she once called her everything, Ethan Cole. Her husband, the CEO of Cole Industries, one of the most powerful companies in Atlanta, lay unconscious, hooked up to machines that beeped like a heartbeat trapped in metal. The accident had taken everything from him, his memory, his confidence, and worst of all, his love for her. Ava brushed a hand across his cheek. "You promised me forever," she whispered. "But you don't even know my name now." She still wore her wedding ring, the one he'd designed himself, with a single diamond shaped like a teardrop. It used to sparkle when he smiled. Now it was dull, like her world. 6 months earlier, Ava wasn't always the CEO's wife. She was his partner, the woman who helped him rise from a struggling entrepreneur to a corporate giant. They met in a coffee shop, both chasing dreams and debts. Ethan was confident, sharp, a man who saw the world as a chessboard. And Ava? She was the only one who could predict his next move. Together, they built something beautiful. Not just a business, but a bond forged in ambition and late-night takeout. He called her his anchor, she called him her storm, but success came with cracks. And love, under pressure, started to fade like paint in the rain. When Ethan took over Cole Industries, he changed. The boardrooms replaced laughter, the schedules replaced dinners. Ava watched him drift, slowly, painfully, into someone she didn't recognize. Then came the accident. It was supposed to be a routine flight to New York. Ethan's private jet lost control in bad weather. The world watched the headlines. Cole Industries, CEO survives crash, suffers severe memory loss. When Ava reached the hospital, his assistant stopped her at the door. "He doesn't remember you," she said carefully. "The doctors think it's best if he isn't overwhelmed." Ava froze. "I'm his wife." "We don't have any record of that, ma'am." Her heart shattered. Ethan's mother, Veronica Cole, had always disapproved of Ava, called her the girl from nowhere. And now, with her son's memory gone, Veronica had a chance to erase Ava completely. A stranger in her own home, Ava tried to visit him again weeks later, only to be met by security. "Mr. Cole doesn't want visitors," they said. But she caught a glimpse of him through the glass. Ethan, sitting in a wheelchair, staring at a newspaper photo of himself and a woman who wasn't her. The media painted her as an ex-girlfriend. Veronica called her a phase, but Ava knew love didn't vanish. Not like that. She moved into a small apartment, started working quietly at a community design firm, and tried to rebuild. But every morning, she checked the news, still hoping to see a flicker of her Ethan again. One night, 6 months later, Ava was sketching at her desk when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it until she heard the voice. "Ava." Her heart froze. "Ethan, I don't know why I'm calling you. Your name, it feels familiar." Her breath hitched. "Do you remember me?" "No," he said quietly. "But I remember the way your name feels." It was like a small crack of sunlight in a long, cold winter. A visit. The next day, she went to see him at his estate. The place hadn't changed. Polished marble, the smell of white lilies. The portrait of his mother watching over everything like a ghost. When she entered, Ethan looked up, confusion softening into something gentler. You were in my dreams." Ava's lips trembled. "I used to be in your life." He stared for a long moment. "Who are you to me?" She smiled sadly. "Your wife." The silence that followed was unbearable. Then Veronica's voice sliced through it. "Ethan, don't listen to her. She's the reason you crashed in the first place. Ava turned. That's a lie. But Ethan's eyes, lost and uncertain, made her realize he didn't know what to believe. The letter later that night. Ethan found a box in his study labeled AC. Inside were letters, photos and sketches, all from Ava. Drawings of their first apartment, ticket stubs from their first date, and a letter that read, "If we ever forget each other." I hope our hearts remember. Something inside him stirred. A flash, her laughter, the scent of coffee, his hand on her back. It was like watching memories through fogged glass. He grabbed his phone. "Ava, I think I remember something." The return days turned into weeks, and fragments of his memory came back. How she used to make pancakes on Sundays. How she'd trace circles on his palm when he was anxious. How she was the only person who ever called him E. But as his memory returned, so did the corporate pressure. The board wanted him to remarry, to a strategic partner's daughter. Veronica pushed it relentlessly. "Ava was never your equal," she said. "You have an empire to protect." But Ethan, now torn between duty and a love he barely remembered, whispered, "Then maybe the empire isn't worth keeping." The storm returns, the day of the board's merger announcement. Ava showed up uninvited, soaked in rain, holding the old wedding ring he'd given her. "You once told me this ring meant forever," she said, her voice breaking. "Even if you don't remember, I do. And that's enough for both of us," the cameras flashed. The board gasped, and Ethan, standing there in silence, reached for her hand. "Forever," he whispered. "I think I remember now." Tears ran down Ava's face as he kissed her knuckles, the same way he used to when he couldn't find the words. But the story wasn't over. Because love, like memory, doesn't come back easily. It fights, it bleeds, it remembers. The sound of rain on glass had become Ethan's lullaby. Every night since that press conference, the day he publicly reached for Ava's hand, the world had changed again. For him. For her, the media called her the mystery woman from the CEO's past. Veronica Cole called her the biggest mistake of his life. But Ethan called her Ava. He said the name softly now, as if afraid it would vanish if spoken too loud. "Ava," he murmured one morning, leaning on the terrace railing. "That name feels like home." Behind him, Ava appeared, coffee in one hand, quiet smile on her lips. "Then let me make you feel at home again." She handed him the cup the way she used to, sugar first, no cream, because he hated the aftertaste. She remembered all the little things. He didn't, not yet, but something inside him wanted to. The slow return of warmth. They began spending mornings together again. Sometimes in silence, sometimes in laughter that came hesitantly, like a child learning to walk. She'd show him old photos, old memories. Him dancing terribly at their wedding, her falling asleep at his desk during late-night meetings, the anniversary trip to the beach he planned but never took. Each picture pulled a new thread of memory. Some he recognized instantly. Others just made his chest ache, like a song he almost remembered. "I don't know why," he said one day, staring at a photo of her wearing his hoodie. "But looking at this, I feel like I failed you." Ava shook her head gently. "You didn't fail me, Ethan. You just forgot me." "That's different." The world that never waits outside their fragile bubble, the corporate world, moved ruthlessly. Cole Industries was preparing to merge with Thorne Global, a deal worth billions. And at every meeting, Veronica made sure her son sat beside Samantha Thorne, the poised daughter of the partner company. The board loved the optics. 2 heirs, 2 empires, 1 perfect image. When Ava appeared in the office one day to bring Ethan lunch, whispers rippled through the glass holes. The CEO's forgotten wife. The woman who didn't fit the luxury world anymore. Veronica greeted her with a cold smile. "Ava, dear, you look comfortable." "And you look unchanged," Ava replied politely, refusing to flinch. When Veronica leaned close, her perfume sharp and expensive, she whispered, "You think you can fix his memory with coffee and old pictures? Don't fool yourself. You were never meant for this life." Ava smiled, small, controlled. "Maybe. But this life was built with my hands, Mrs. Cole." Even if you erase me from it, the foundation still remembers me. Veronica's lips thinned. The war had begun, quietly, elegantly, behind soft smiles. That evening, as Ava packed her sketchbook, Ethan entered the room carrying an envelope. "I found this in my office," he said, handing it to her. It was labeled Project E, Confidential. Inside were design plans, product sketches, and handwritten notes, hers. Ava's handwriting, her vision, her ideas, under Ethan's company logo. "You used to design for us?" he asked, eyes wide. She nodded softly. "Not just design. I co-founded it. The first 5 prototypes were mine. You said we were partners, in business and in life." Ethan looked stunned. He flipped through every page, his fingers trembling as flashes of memory struck. Long nights, her laughter, the smell of ink and coffee. "I said, we were partners?" "You said," Ava whispered, tears threatening, "that your empire began the day you met me." And just like that, the walls began to crack. The distance between then and now slowly closing. Remembering the rain one night, Ethan woke from a dream. Rain pounding, Ava crying. A fight. Words he didn't mean, but remembered saying. He found her in the kitchen, staring out the window. "It was raining the night before the crash," he said quietly. She turned, startled. "You remember that?" "You were crying," he said, voice breaking. "And I left." She nodded slowly. "You said love was a distraction, that I made you weak." His chest tightened. He took a step closer. "I was wrong, wasn't I?" "You were scared," she replied. "So was I." For a moment, silence filled the room. Soft, forgiving. He reached for her hand, trembling. "I don't want to be scared anymore." The Galacol Industries' annual gala arrived, a night of diamonds and deception. Veronica made sure Ava's name was not on the guest list, but Ethan, now remembering pieces of who he was and who she'd been, had other plans. When he arrived at the gala with Ava on his arm, the room fell silent. Flashbulbs, whispers, disbelief. Veronica's face tightened. "Ethan, what are you doing?" "Reminding the world who I am," he said, "and who stood by me when I was no one." He turned to the cameras. "Meet my wife, Ava Cole." The crowd erupted, some in applause, others in scandalized shock. Veronica's smile didn't reach her eyes. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "Maybe," he said softly, "but I'll regret losing her more." The photograph a week later, Ava found an old framed photograph in a dusty box in his study. It was their wedding picture, him in a charcoal suit, her in a cream dress, laughing mid-spin. But what made her cry wasn't the photo. It was the small handwritten note taped behind it. "If I ever forget this day, please remind me why I smiled." Her tears dropped onto the paper, smudging the ink. Ethan entered quietly, resting a hand on her shoulder. "You kept this," she whispered. "You did," he replied. "I just found it again." He lifted her chin, smiling faintly. "I think I remember everything that matters." A mother's desperation, Veronica wasn't done. Behind closed doors, she summoned her lawyers, prepared press leaks, and met with the board privately. "My son is ill," she said. "He's being manipulated by a woman who sees profit in his condition." Rumors spread overnight. Headlines twisted the story. CEO's former lover exploiting memory loss. Ava stayed silent through it all. But Ethan stormed into his mother's mansion the next morning. "You think you can protect me by destroying the only person who's ever loved me?" Veronica's voice trembled for the first time. "I'm protecting this family." "No," he said. "You're protecting your control, and I'm done being your project." For a moment, the powerful matriarch stood speechless, watching her son, the man she built to be ruthless, Finally choose love over legacy. The memory that returned weeks later. Ethan and Ava walked through the same park where they'd first met. The scent of roasted peanuts in the air, jazz music echoing from a distance. Ava smiled faintly. "You still don't remember that day, do you?" Ethan hesitated. "I remember tripping over your sketchbook and spilling your coffee," she gasped. "You do remember?" He laughed softly. "And you yelled at me until I bought you a new one. It cost me my lunch money for the week." They both laughed, not out of joy, but out of relief. Pieces of his memory, his heart, his self were coming back, one tender moment at a time. He took her hand, interlacing their fingers. "Ava, I don't remember every moment, but I remember the feeling." "Which one?" she asked. "The one where I realized I'd never love anyone else." Her eyes filled with tears. "Then that's all that matters." Epilogue, soft ending. Months later, the merger went through, but this time under their terms. Ethan reinstated Ava as co-director of design, the way it always should have been. At the next board meeting, Veronica entered quietly, older somehow. Her pride dimmed. Ava stood and handed her a cup of tea. "Peace offering," she said. Veronica hesitated, then nodded. "You really love him. Enough to forgive everything that tried to keep us apart." For the first time, Veronica smiled. Not coldly, not bitterly, but as a mother watching love win. That night, Ethan and Ava stood on their balcony, city lights stretching below. "It feels different now," Ava said softly. "It is," Ethan replied, wrapping his arm around her. "Because this time, I'll never forget." And as the rain began to fall again, the same rain that once tore them apart, it finally sounded like forgiveness. The morning sun filtered softly through the tall glass windows of the penthouse. The light touched the sleek furniture, the silent piano, and the silver-framed photographs on the shelf, none of which included her. Amara stood by the window, dressed in a simple beige sweater, clutching a cup of coffee she hadn't sipped in 10 minutes. She looked at the city below, where people rushed to work, holding on to dreams and love stories that hadn't been erased. Behind her, the door opened. "Mrs. Gray, sorry, Miss Amara," said Lillian, the housekeeper awkwardly. "Mr. Gray left early for the board meeting." Amara smiled faintly. "It's okay, Lillian. You don't have to correct yourself." She had stopped correcting people months ago. She wasn't Mrs. Gray anymore, not to anyone but her heart. Flashback 2 years ago, she had been the light in Jordan Gray's world. He was the young CEO of Graytech, the prodigy who built an empire before 30. She was the woman who grounded him, the artist who painted warmth into his world of glass and steel. They had married quietly, secretly, far from the eyes of tabloids. Their love was soft, real, filled with laughter, midnight ramen, and long drives in silence. Then came the accident. A stormy night, a highway, a truck's headlights, a shattered windshield. And when he woke up in the hospital, he didn't remember her. The doctors called it selective amnesia. His mind had chosen which memories to keep and which to bury. Her face, her voice, their love, gone. Jordan's family seized the chance. They'd never approved of her. She wasn't from wealth, wasn't from power. His mother, Celeste Gray, whispered into his ear, "You were never married. She was just your assistant. She caused your accident," and he believed it. Now, months later, Amara lived quietly in a small art gallery she owned, one Jordan had bought her as a wedding gift. She never told him that. She just kept it alive, painting the same sea over and over again, the sea where they'd once made promises. One afternoon, as she was closing the gallery, she heard footsteps, heavy, familiar. She turned. It was him. Jordan Gray, in a charcoal suit, his expression unreadable. "Amara," he said, voice calm, distant. "You're still here." She froze, her heart racing. It's my gallery, Jordan. He nodded slightly, looking around. You still paint the same ocean? It's not the same, she whispered. It changes with time, like people do. For a second, something flickered in his eyes, something uncertain. But then it was gone. He took a breath. My mother's charity gala is next week. She wants to feature your paintings. I came to ask if you'd agree. Her laugh broke slightly. Your mother? The same woman who… She stopped herself. Jordan looked at her, puzzled. Who what? Nothing, she said quietly. Tell her I'll send a few pieces. He hesitated before turning away. You should come too. Her breath caught. Why? He didn't answer. He just looked at her again, like something deep inside him was trying to remember. That night, Amara sat in her studio, staring at an old photograph she kept hidden. It was from their honeymoon in Seoul. Him holding her in the rain, both laughing like kids. She touched the photo. You said love doesn't need memory, just feeling, she whispered. So why can't you feel me anymore? The Galathy Hall shimmered in gold and glass. Reporters buzzed, guests whispered. Jordan stood by his mother, immaculate as always, shaking hands, smiling politely. And then she entered. Amara walked in wearing a soft silver gown, her hair pinned up, her presence quiet yet luminous. The entire room seemed to pause. Jordan turned and froze. Something shifted. His heartbeat faltered, her scent, her walk. A memory like a shadow flickered at the edge of his mind. A hand in his, laughter under the rain. Celeste noticed his gaze and frowned. Jordan, she whispered sharply. Remember your place. He nodded, tearing his eyes away. But it was too late. Throughout the night, he kept glancing at her, watching how she smiled shyly when people complimented her work, how she avoided him every time their eyes met. After the gala, as guests left, Amara stood near one of her paintings, the sea again, but this time the colors were darker, stormier. Jordan approached slowly. You painted this recently, she nodded. After you stopped remembering me. He froze. What? She smiled sadly. It's okay. You don't have to understand. Something inside him broke. Her voice, her eyes, everything felt like a déjà vu he couldn't name. Amara, he said softly, why do I feel like I've known you longer than anyone else? Tears welled in her eyes. Because you have, Jordan. You just forgot. The memory returns, foreshadowing. That night, as he drove home, rain began to fall. Just like that night, 2 years ago. The wipers blurred his vision, and for a split second he saw it, her face in the rain, her hand reaching for his before the crash. He slammed the brakes, heart pounding. Her voice echoed, Jordan, watch out! He gasped, gripping the steering wheel. His breath shook. He didn't understand what was happening, but something inside him whispered, she's the one. In the days that followed, he couldn't focus. At work, her laughter echoed in his head. Her name on the files, her art in his mother's mansion, it all felt too close. He began asking questions. To his assistant, to his mother, to the driver who had taken him that night. And slowly, the pieces began to shift. Meanwhile, Amara sat in her gallery one evening, rain tapping on the glass. When a knock came at the door, Jordan stood there, soaked, trembling, eyes red. Tell me the truth, he said. Who are you to me? Her lips trembled. You really don't know? He shook his head helplessly. Every night I see your face in my dreams. Every time it rains I hear your voice. Tell me why. Tears streamed down her face. Because Jordan, she whispered, voice breaking. I'm your wife. He froze. The words hit him like thunder. His chest rose and fell rapidly, the world spinning. But deep down, he knew, the way she said his name, the way her eyes looked into his. It was all there, buried under time and lies, and outside, thunder rolled across the city as if echoing the storm that had started 2 years ago and was about to end with truth. The night wind rattled the windows of Grey Tech Tower, Rain streaked the glass like old tears. Inside, the top floor glowed faintly. Jordan's office, where he sat alone, his hands trembling over the scattered photos he had found. A secret drawer in his mother's study. A hidden folder marked personal. Inside, wedding photos. Him and Amara, smiling, laughing, rings glimmering in sunlight. His throat tightened. His chest hurt. They lied to me. The door burst open. Celeste Gray entered, regal as ever, draped in pearls and control. "Jordan, why are you here at this hour?" He looked up slowly, eyes burning. "Tell me the truth, Mother." She froze. "About what?" He slammed the photo on the desk. "About her. About Amara." Her face paled. Why did you hide this from me?" His voice cracked like thunder. "You told me she was just my assistant. You said she caused the accident." Celeste's lips trembled, then hardened. "I did what was best for you. Best for me?" He laughed bitterly. "Or best for your reputation?" She raised her chin. "You were sick, Jordan. Vulnerable. That girl came from nowhere, with no background, no name. I couldn't let her ruin. She was my wife!" He shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "My life!" Silence fell heavy, broken only by the rain outside. Celeste's eyes softened just for a second. "I was afraid you'd lose everything for her." "I already did," he whispered. "When you made me forget her." Meanwhile, Amara sat in her tiny apartment, painting through tears. The canvas was half blue, half gray, a storm meeting the sea. She had told him the truth. And now he was gone. No calls, no messages. Maybe she shouldn't have said it. Maybe it was too late. The doorbell rang. She hesitated, wiped her face, and opened the door. Jordan stood there, soaked, breathless, eyes full of something raw and real. "Jordan." He stepped inside slowly. "I remember." Her breath caught. "What?" "I remember everything." His voice broke. "The rain, the vows. The way you laughed when I burned the pancakes on our honeymoon." She covered her mouth, tears spilling down. You remember that?" He nodded, his hands shaking. "I don't know how I forgot, Amara. I don't know how I believed them. But when I saw those photos, everything came back like fire." He took a step closer. "I let them take you from me. I let them rewrite us." She looked at him, voice trembling. "You were sick, Jordan. You didn't choose it." He shook his head. "But I'm choosing you now." They stood there for a moment. Silence heavy, hearts louder than thunder. Then slowly he reached for her hand. Her fingers fit into his like they always had. "Can you forgive me?" He whispered. Amara's lips quivered. "You never stopped being mine, even when you forgot me." He smiled softly, tears in his eyes. "Then let me remember you for the rest of my life." The final confrontation days. Later, Celeste arrived at the gallery. The mother who had built empires, now standing small before the woman her lies had hurt most. "Amara," she said quietly. "I came to apologize." Amara turned. "Surprised! I thought I was protecting my son," Celeste said, voice cracking. "But I only broke him. When he looked at me last night, I saw the boy I lost." Amara's eyes softened. "We all make mistakes when we're afraid." Celeste nodded slowly. "He loves you." "He always did." Even when he didn't remember. That evening, Jordan returned to the gallery. No suits, no titles. Just him, the man who once promised forever under the sole rain. He walked toward her. "Do you know what today is?" She smiled faintly. "Another day you found me again?" He shook his head. "Our anniversary," her heart skipped. "But—" He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside was the same silver ring she had slipped onto his finger years ago, now repaired. "I don't need to start over," he said softly. "I just need to continue where we stopped." Her tears fell freely. "Jordan!" He placed the ring back on her finger, whispering, "I found my way back home." Epilogue. Months later, the city glowed under a golden sunset. The gallery was busier than ever. Amara's paintings now signed with her full name, Amara Gray. In one corner, a photograph hung on the wall, her and Jordan laughing in the rain, not from the past, but taken just last week. He stood beside her, wrapping his arm around her waist. "Still painting the ocean?" he teased. She smiled. "It's where we began, and where we found each other again." He kissed her forehead gently. Then let's never let it fade. The camera panned out, the city lights flickering, rain starting to fall, the sea whispering in the distance, and her voice echoed softly. Love doesn't vanish when memory fades. It hides, waiting for the heart to remember.